measuringhistory.com explains the 2009 through roughly 2012 Saturn-Uranus-Pluto T-square. Now, for you non-astrologers out there, it's really a simple configuration, and the big deal about this configuration is because we see essentially a similar repeat of what we got in the 1930s, and just as an aside, around 1870, the mid-1870s, when there was also a what was beginning the Long Depression, so we had another period of financial collapse, 1875. But essentially we can see that June 1931 we had Saturn opposite Pluto being squared by Uranus, and then again in December of that year, September 10th, 2010, we had Saturn opposite Uranus being squared by Pluto. So it's the same three planets, but arranged differently. So same three planets, same configuration, T-square, but configured differently. And because they are the same three planets, we will get the same three waves: Saturn-Pluto, Saturn-Uranus, and Uranus-Pluto. Now, one thing that we should note, that all of these, since they, for the 2010 episode at least, since they occur under the 1893-2384 Neptune-Pluto wave, they are part of that wave, and that's what this diagram here means. That's why it's shown on top, just a reminder. And of course, as you can see, the little stripe at the bottom of each of these waves matches the same color as the 1893-2384 wave, just as a reminder. So again, we get, for the 2010 T-square, we have Saturn-Uranus wave, Saturn-Pluto wave, and then Uranus-Pluto wave. Now the Uranus-Pluto wave, since Uranus-Pluto has a frequency of varies between 111 or 141 years, it's going to last longer. It has a longer influence. Essentially, for 2010, 2009 through 2010, the peak of the T-square occurs between about 2009 and the end of 2010 into 2011. The reason why I'm fudging a little bit is if we look at October 1st, 2010, we see that Uranus is square Pluto, Saturn is square Pluto, but Saturn is technically too far away to be opposite Uranus. But if we change the chart a little bit and we look at the chart with all of the inner planets in there, the inner planets of course move quicker, and therefore they oftentimes enhance the outer planet transits. This is basically known as a trigger effect, and that makes sense if we go back to the video Why Use Outer Planet Waves, that explains that the inner planets are a collective experience and the inner planets are individual experience and the outer planets are collective experience. And so essentially, when we have inner planets interacting with the outer planets and turning something that's not a T-square into a T-square, we're mixing the individual experience with collective experience. So essentially, from September 10th, 2010, we still have the T-square in full configuration, and we get these planets, as I spoke about, these outer planet waves, Saturn-Uranus, Saturn-Pluto, Uranus-Pluto. But by August 29th, 2011, because they're out of orb, so to speak, out of range, the Saturn-Uranus and Saturn-Pluto waves are no longer in effect. So we just get the Uranus-Pluto wave in effect all the way actually through about 2015. Now, when we do go and back and compare the 2010 T-square to the 1930 T-square, we will see that one of the big differences is that the 1930 T-square is going to look back at the 1850 Uranus-Pluto 1965 wave, and then the Saturn-Pluto 1915, Saturn-Pluto 1947 wave. And it's pretty obvious when we see on the waves that where 1930 is, 1931, 1932, that these are part of that episode. Those waves are part of this episode, versus the ones that we see today. So this is basically a primer on 2010, and then as we move forward, we'll talk about how the waves compare. One thing that we should note is that the 2010s is going to set up what's going to happen in the 2040s. So it's all going to tie together once this full episode of the Great Depression, Great Recession compared is done. And make sure that you, when you go to the Waves blog, measuringhistory.com, brings you to the Waves blog, you'll notice that next to links there are book icon or a film looking icon. A film icon has a video connected to it. The book icon has a link connected to it. And also when you see this configuration where there's one big window and there's 4 small windows under it, just click on those windows. They also pop up with the additional information. Please also like Measuring History on Facebook and subscribe to the Measuring History channel on YouTube. Measuring History, thanks you for watching.